I'm sure we've all had typical jobs just to make a living. Maybe drive-through, grocery clerk, or even a cashier. My worst experience ever was when I got my first job as a night guard for a nearby store. It all started when I was sitting on my sofa looking at my phone for different jobs that were available. I recently turned 18, just started summer vacation, and my parents thought it would be nice for me to get a job and save money for a living. Browsing through different job categories, I didn't find anything I was interested in. Cashier? Nope. Grocery bagger? Pass. Drive-through? No thank you. Then I found it. An article on a new clock store called Rusty's House of Horology that opened sometime last week. A text next to the picture of the store saying, "Help wanted." I've always been a steampunk clockwork type guy, so I thought it was a great opportunity to get a job of doing something I love. I showed my parents the article, and we all got in the car and drove to the place. We arrived about 15 minutes later in a shopping area. It was a very large store, having 2 floors and about 100 feet of store space on each floor, if that's what you call it. We walked up to the store, and I caught a glimpse of something in the large display window. I walked up to it and peeked through the glass. 3 animatronic animals stood at the window. A bunny, a cat, and a bear with a missing eye and a hook for a hand. They resembled automatons, which are mechanical figures powered by springs and gears, sort of like an old clock. Their bodies were made of bolted metal with spots of rust appearing in some places. Brass gears jutted out of their bodies, slowly spinning as they moved around. We walked inside and were greeted by the ticking of many clocks sitting on shelves and hanging on the walls. I walked behind a row of grandfather clocks and saw the robotic animals on the other side. I could faintly hear the whirring of electric motors and the clatter of gears as they moved their arms and their heads, looking out the window at people passing by.
"I see you've met my friends."
I let out a surprised yelp at a voice I heard behind me. I spun around and was met face to face with a man, possibly in his 30s, wearing a white jacket, small tools sticking out of his front pocket.
"Sorry to startle you,"
he said. He introduced himself as Frederick, the owner of the store, and asked me if I needed help with anything. I explained to him that I was there for the job application.
"Ah, yes. The job for night guarding the store, I see."
Night guarding? I wasn't expecting this. Why do you need a night guard? He further explained that a few days ago, 2 or so people broke into the store. When the police arrived, they found a few valuable antiques missing, and another robot animal that was dismantled and mangled. He already placed an order for an alarm system, but until he gets it installed, he needs someone to watch the store at night to make sure no one else breaks in and ruins another one of his creations. Even though it wasn't the job I was expecting, I took it anyways. He then gave me and my family a tour of the place, showing off his best clocks and other mechanical instruments. He had all sorts of stuff. Books on making clocks, steam-powered phone charger kits, Stirling engines, and lots of other things too. Once it was time to go, Frederick gave me his number, a second key to the store, and said that my first shift will begin the next night at midnight until 6 a.m., and that he will have his co-worker, John, explain more on the phone. We thanked him and went back home. Night 1. Fast forward to the next night. I showed up at the store at around 11:55 with a cup of coffee in hand. The parking lot was vacant, since not a lot of other stores around here are open during the time. I got out of my car and walked up to the front entrance. There were no lights on inside, so I took out my pocket flashlight and clicked it on. I pointed it at the display window by the door. A grandfather clock stood tall and mighty, and the 3 robots right next to it. I got chills at how creepy they looked, standing so lifeless in the dark. I rummaged through my pocket for the spare key and unlocked the door. The many clocks ticking at once filled my eardrums, and I walked through the rows of timepieces to the long hallway that leads to the office area. I entered a dark room, illuminated only by a lamp sitting on a desk towards the back of the room, accompanied by a fan, a laptop, and an early 2000s style landline telephone. There was also a large wooden wardrobe sitting behind the chair. A yellow sticky note was stuck on the laptop. I picked it up and looked it over. It was a list of the robots' names: Rusty, Mittens, Ratchet, Crank, Diesel, and Casey. That's strange. I don't remember Frederick showing 3 other robots on his shop tour. I put the note on the desk and sat in the chair. The silence was broken by the telephone ringing. I picked up the receiver and said hello.
Hello. Hey, welcome to your new night job guarding Rusty's House of Horology. I'm John Frederick's coworker.
Ah, yes. Frederick told me about you. You're the one who will tell me what to do?
Yes. Before I do, there are some things I want to inform you about. I recently found camera footage of the robots walking around the store at night. I think it has to do with intruders possibly tampering with their wires and circuits as a sick joke. It even seems like they act relatively hostile at around midnight. It could just be my imagination. But in the daytime, they do just fine. They also move around during store hours. Since this new type of modern technology allows them to do so when they aren't advertising at a display window by the entrance, they can actually help out in the workshop.
Oh, okay. But why are they animals instead of humans?
Frederick designed them like that because he thought it would be more creative. Not to mention, whatever resembles a human is just downright creepy. But it seems to actually grabs people's attention. It's either that or their steampunk appearance. Fred purposely made them look like antiques and added even realistic looking rust spots on their body. He also wanted to make them look like they were built from scrap, which is why they have bolted plates, and Rusty Bear having a hook on his hand and a missing eye. You might have also noticed all the brass gears on their body. They actually control their movements and aren't just for looks. Fred wanted to be like the best of both worlds type thing, since the robots aren't controlled by circuits and servers, but function using a lot of mechanical parts.
Fascinating. Now, what will be happening during my shift?
Notice the laptop on your desk. I will give you full access to the security cameras throughout the store. Your job is to make sure everything is in place and that no one breaks in. You can click on a camera to view it, and then move them around the room using the arrows on the keyboard. Be sure to keep an eye on the animatronics as well. I'm a little concerned about their nocturnal activation. Plus, when Fred had the place built, he didn't put doors separating your office from the hallway. See the wardrobe behind you?
I turn around and gaze up at the big walnut wardrobe. Yeah, I see it.
There's a possibility that the robots will find your office and try and get inside. With only little light source being the lamp on your desk, they might not see you very well in the dark. So just in case they do get inside your office, hide inside the wardrobe and wait until the coast is clear. I don't actually know if they're hostile, but it's not worth the risk to stay in sight. And that's about it. Wait, one more thing. Be careful. Your laptop will eventually run out of power, so use it wisely. You have a flashlight on you. Be cautious with the battery power as well. You're gonna need it. Good night, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
The dial tone to the phone played, so I set the receiver back on its cradle. I glanced at my pocket watch, reading 2:15. Wow, 2 hours already? I placed it back in my pocket and flipped open the laptop. The screen flashed on, showing a label titled Display Window and a dark image of the 3 robots standing in front of the window. I flipped through more cameras and landed on one labeled Repair Shop. A single light on the ceiling illuminated the room, and I could hear what sounded like a music box. The camera was pointed at a desk covered with clock parts and tools. I clicked on the right arrow on the keyboard, and the screen slowly moved to the right. It stopped after turning about 90 degrees. Just barely, by the light provided, I could see another robot sitting by the case of a broken grandfather clock. It looked like a dog, or a wolf, or something like that. Similar to Rusty, it had only one eye, but from its neck down to its feet, I could only see a mangled, endoskeletal body. It had a complicated system of gears and levers like the other robots, but some were hanging off of thin springs, and electrical wires were dangling out of various parts of its body. A chill ran down my spine, and I quickly switched to another camera. I went to one that was labeled Workshop. Another ceiling light lit up the room, as well as all sorts of power tools, a lathe, a table saw, and a drill press. I moved the camera around the room, and stopped when I noticed 2 more steampunk robots sitting by a large belt sander. One had a clock for a head, and the other looked like another cat. Not an ordinary cat like Mittens, but a panther. I looked at the sticky note, and they were both labeled as Diesel and Crank. They must be the ones that also help in the workshop, I thought to myself. The laptop battery was already almost at 75%, so I closed the monitor and sat back in the chair. I looked around the office and noticed 2 large vents on the wall on either side of the room. I walked up and flashed my light into one of them. The vent stretched out for a long way. I got nervous, since both of the vents were large enough to fit a person, so the robots might actually try to crawl through there to get inside. I quickly went back to the desk and sat in the chair. Just then, I could hear the clanging of metal footsteps coming from somewhere in the store. I flipped open the laptop and clicked on the display window camera. The bunny, Ratchet, was missing. Whoa! John was right about them moving around. I flipped through more cameras and stopped on one labeled Lumber Room. Shelves of wooden planks sat in rows throughout the room. I could see Ratchet poking his head out from behind a shelf, staring at the camera. I actually thought it was amusing. It looked like he was hiding playfully. Chuckling to myself, I switched to the farthest camera on the left. I got a black screen, the label on the top reading, Left Vent. A small box sat in the bottom left of the screen, a white text labeled Vent Light inside of it. I clicked on it, and the vent filled with light. So I was correct. The robots can get inside through the vents. Closing the monitor again, I noticed another button on the wall by the desk. A single press sent light pouring out of the end of the vent into the office. It was probably a way to see if anyone would crawl out. I walked back to the desk and sat in the chair. For the rest of the night, nothing else really happened. At around 5:55, I checked the display window camera and found Ratchet back with his friends. The laptop battery was at around 50%, so I knew I was in good hands for however long I'd be staying at this store. I walked out of the office, through the building, and out into the parking lot to my car. The sky glowed a faint purple as the rising sun peeked over the horizon. I drove back to my house and enjoyed a day of rest after arriving.